When you hear the word Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, you probably think of some pretty heavy stuff. Ancient laws, epic stories, immense authority. And you're not wrong. But what if there's a completely different way to read it? Today, we're going to look at this foundational text through a whole new lens.
What if these books aren't just about something that happened thousands of years ago? What if they're actually a blueprint for human growth? A kind of biography that mirrors our own journey, from conception all the way to maturity. It might sound a little out there, but stick with me. Let's dive in.
So here's the roadmap for our journey today. We're going to walk through these 5 books as 5 stages of life. Genesis, that's conception. Exodus is the birth. Leviticus, well, that's the school years. Numbers is that messy, rebellious adolescence. And finally, Deuteronomy is mature adulthood. It's literally a coming-of-age story.
Look, at its heart, the Pentateuch is absolutely about God. Of course it is. But what makes it so powerful, so timeless, is that it's also about us. It doesn't just throw abstract ideas at you. It gives us a real story of growth, with milestones and struggles that might feel, well, surprisingly familiar.
So where does any story of life begin? With conception. And that's Genesis. Think of it as the fetal stage. Before a nation can be born into the world, it has to be conceived. And that's exactly what's happening here. This idea, this new people, begins to grow inside the womb of history.
Boom. Right there, that's the moment of conception. A simple promise made to one man, Abraham, and it acts like a spark of life. It's the very, very beginning of a people who will eventually reveal a plan for all of us. But it all starts with this one promise.
And think about how this nation actually grows. It starts with one person, Abraham, almost like a single cell. Then with each generation, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, more detail gets added. More complexity develops, just like a fetus growing in the womb. This nation isn't out in the world yet. It's still protected, developing, and a lot of it is still unseen, but you can feel the life kicking.
After that long period of gestation, every life has to be born. And that brings us to Exodus, the dramatic, painful, and ultimately incredible moment of birth for this new people.
So, what's the world of a newborn infant really like? It is completely, totally filled by the presence of a parent, right? In the exact same way, the brand new nation of Israel is totally enveloped by the presence of God. At this stage, God is their entire world.
And once you see it this way, you can't unsee it. This metaphor just fits perfectly with everything in Exodus. That awful servitude in Egypt, it's like labor pains. The parting of the Red Sea, that's the breathtaking moment of birth. Then, at Mount Sinai, they finally meet their parent, God, face to face. And the 10 Commandments, those are kind of like their first words. Their whole world, their main activity, becomes worship.
Okay, so after infancy comes childhood, and that brings us to Leviticus, which we can think of as the school years. This is where the formal education kicks in. It's time to learn the rules of the house.
This is basically the teacher laying down the law. Now, Leviticus can feel like this really dense book of rules. I get it. But it's really a curriculum. It's the how-to guide for what it means to live as God's people, and it covers every little detail of daily life.
And the main subject in this school, it's not math or science, it's the relationship with God. Leviticus is the textbook. And the reason it's so detailed is because you're not just learning facts, you're learning how to build a whole society from the ground up, how to act before God, and just as important, how to treat one another.
All right, so we've gone through conception, birth, and school. You know what's next, right? Adolescence. And that brings us to the book of Numbers, a time of wandering, of questioning, and, yeah, a whole lot of teenage rebellion.
So now the people are old enough to start thinking for themselves, to start pushing back. They're asking those classic teenage questions. Who are we really? Are we just who our parents say we are? This whole search for identity, it becomes the absolute central crisis in the book of Numbers.
And this struggle, it plays out for nearly 40 years in the wilderness. I mean, that is a long adolescence. They rebel against Moses. They rebel against God. They rebel against that whole parent generation. They're trying to forge their own identity, and a lot of times that means rejecting what came before. It is messy, it's difficult, and it takes a long, long time.
But this really difficult teenage phase sets the stage for a massive transformation. The whole journey now shifts away from all that rebellion and questioning you see in Numbers and moves toward love, synthesis, and responsibility, the things that really define adulthood in Deuteronomy.
And here we are, the final stage, Deuteronomy as adulthood.
And this isn't about just forgetting all those earlier stages. It's about integrating all of them, the good and the bad, into one mature, whole identity.
So what's the pinnacle of this entire journey? After all the lessons, all the rebellion, all the growth, what does it all boil down to? It synthesizes into one core principle: love. This great commandment isn't just one more rule on a list, it's the very definition of maturity for this people.
Love. That becomes the single most important word in the whole book. It's described as the most characteristic, the most complete human act. In other words, we are most truly ourselves, most truly God's people, when we love. It's the ultimate expression of a mature life.
So what does this kind of maturity actually look like? Well, it's not about cutting away your past, pretending it didn't happen. It's about integrating it. Deuteronomy is just filled with sermons and songs that look back on the entire journey, making sense of it all. The people are finally prepared to live as a free, holy, and responsible people, with their identity now defined by their capacity to love.
So, when you put it all together, this whole journey, from conception to adulthood, it forms this solid, unshakable foundation for the entire biblical story that comes next. It's the moral groundwork, the biography that sets the stage for everything else to come.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought. If these 5 books are the carefully laid foundation of a coming-of-age story, then what kind of magnificent, complex building does a foundation like that ultimately support? Well, that's a question for the rest of the story. Thanks for joining me.